What's going on, YouTube? Happy Monday to everybody. Hope you guys are having a great day so far. We're going to give everybody a couple of minutes to join us here before we talk about the topic today. While we're waiting for that, if you haven't already done so, take this time to go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, tap on that notification bell up in the top right-hand corner of your screen. That will put you on notifications. When we do put out YouTube videos, you will get a notification that we're going live. Also, if you haven't done so yet, text the word YouTube to 76626 from your cell phone. Text the word YouTube to 76626. That will put you on our text message notification list. Also, Pigeonly, which there's a link in the description of this video, and CJ will also be posting it in the live chat. Pigeonly is who we use to send all of our inmates either pictures, if you want to send your inmates cards, if you want to save money on your phone calls. All of this can be done through Pigeonly, which there's a link in the description. You can send pictures and cards without leaving your house. You can basically upload pictures to your Pigeonly account, and you can email them directly to your inmate, which saves you time and money from having to go to the store to print out your pictures. So today's topic, how you doing, Gus? Today's topic, we're talking about the U.S. Sentencing Commission and the amendments to the sentencing guidelines for individuals that may possibly qualify for alternatives to incarceration, people that might be looking at going to federal prison. So this is who that is going to apply to. So make sure you hang out for this video, because there's also a link in the description of the video where if you want to read the full amendment, you can check out that link. Also, make sure you give this video a thumbs up. If you haven't already done so, give us a thumbs up and comment on this video, like, share, all of that good stuff. Okay, so the reason why we're doing the video today is we receive a lot of emails from our clients that are in prison, and we also receive a lot of emails from family members of our clients that are in prison. Today, we received an email from one of our clients' family members asking in regards to, are we familiar with the amendment made to the sentencing guidelines for nonviolent first-time offenders and how that can affect them to where there are alternatives to basically prison. And what does that look like? So we wanted to touch base on that with all of you today. And let's actually go ahead and flip over to that screen. How many people we got in the room, CJ?
10.
Okay, we got 10 people in the room, so that's enough to get started. So I'm going to show you what we're looking at here. So this paragraph that you see on the left side of your screen, this was taken, I copied and pasted this out of the amendment. There is a link in the description of the video. CJ, if you could grab that link out of the description of the video and post it for people. There is a link to the entire amendment that you can read and go through it at your leisure. So let's go ahead and jump into this. Reason for the amendment. The amendment adds a new application to note the commentary on subsection 5C1-1 term of imprisonment, which states that if a defendant is a nonviolent first-time offender, the applicable guideline range in the zone A or B of the sentencing table, the court should consider imposing a sentence other than sentence of imprisonment. This new application note is consistent with the statutory language in 28 U.S.C. subsection 994J regarding the general of imposing a sentence other than imprisonment for a first-time offender who has not been convicted of a crime of violence or any otherwise serious offense, and cites the statutory provision in support. It also consistent with the recent commission of the recidivism study, which demonstrated the offenders with 0 criminal history points have a lower recidivism rate than offenders with a criminal history point. And the offenders with 0 criminal history point and no prior contact with criminal justice systems have even a lower recidivism rate. And then it gives you a little information on stuff you can see there. So what does that mean? I don't know what your base offense level is, but this is going off of Zone A and Zone B. So if you look to the right, you'll see the sentencing guideline table. I've got a picture of it here, and I've got Zone A and Zone B highlighted so you can see them. So Zone A, if your offense level is 1 through 8, you are in Zone A. And it's based on, if you look over just to the right of that, you'll see a little red arrow that's pointing to offense level, and then a little red arrow that's pointing to criminal history category. So if you are a criminal history category 1, which is a 0 or 1, this is who this would apply to, as long as your offense level is basically between a 1 and a 10. So Zone A is 1 through 8, and Zone B is 9 and 10. Then you get into Zone C, which is 11 through 12, and then you get into Zone D, which is 13 through 43. If you're in any of the zones other than A or B, this will not apply to you typically. So the reason why we're doing a video on this, because everybody's hearing about the amendment to the Sentencing Commission, to the guidelines, to offer alternative options separate from prison to people that are first-time nonviolent offenders. So just because you're a first-time nonviolent offender does not mean that this will apply to you. You have to be within Zone A or Zone B. So if you don't understand what that means, feel free to shoot me a call, email, text message, comment in this video, and we can kind of go back and answer some of your questions on there. And again, if you want to read the full amendment, it's in the description of this video right under the paragraph of what's going on. We have any questions in the room yet, CJ?
No, not yet.
So I think it's real important because when you're in prison, we all hear, you've all heard the term inmate.com. I wish I owned the domain name to inmate.com, but inmate.com basically just means other inmates running around giving you advice while you're in prison, or the term jailhouse attorney, where you're getting advice or unsolicited advice from somebody that may not be in a position to give you advice. And what happens is when you're in prison, you don't have instant access to things like Google or the phone where you can pick up and reference what you're hearing. So we'll get emails on a regular basis saying, I heard about this new law and I heard this is going into effect. Well, the one that we just spoke about, that will be going into effect in November of this year, 2018, but it's only going to apply to those that are in Zone A or Zone B. If you're in Zone C or D, it's not going to apply to you, and I wish it did because that would make things a lot better for so many people that are going through. Has the amendment been approved? It looks like it's been approved, Gus, but it won't be in effect until November. And it's not that big of an amendment, to be honest. The average person that we see come across through our channel, through emails, is not in Zone A or Zone B. Because if you look in Zone A, it tells you the guideline range is basically all the way in Zone A for offense level 1 through 8, which you can see next to the blue arrows. Offense level 1 through 8, if you're a criminal category history 1, which is 0 or 1, you'll see the 0 to 6 months is the recommended time that somebody would be sentenced to. At least that's typically what U.S. probation would recommend somebody to. So the way they're looking at it is if you're a nonviolent first-time offender and you're falling into Zone A or Zone B, the chances that you're going to violate, end up getting into trouble again in the future is less likely than somebody that's been in and out of trouble, which makes sense. So they're coming up with a protocol to offer probation, a reduced sentence, possible supervised release, possible probation. These are all options that become available now that will be put into the sentencing guideline table, which will probably see this chart change within the next year.
There's a question about, that was it what you were answering. Does this affect minimum sentences, mandatory minimums?
Well, if you've got a minimum mandatory, like let's say you have aggravated identity theft, that comes with a minimum mandatory of 24 months. So you're not being sentenced based on the guidelines. You're being sentenced based on a minimum mandatory. So if you have a minimum mandatory, I'm not an attorney, so I don't want to give you legal advice, but I do not think that this would help you if you had a minimum mandatory sentence. Chances are, if you have a minimum mandatory, you're probably not in Zone A or Zone B. You're probably going to be in Zone D. Like my guidelines, if you go back, I was in Zone D, and I was a base offense level of, after all of my departures, acceptance of responsibility, all of that good stuff, I was a level 37. And that carries on a category 1, 210 to 262 months. Now there's no minimum mandatory, so technically the judge could have said probation if he wanted to, but I did have a plea that capped my sentence at 60 months, meaning the judge could not give me more than 60 months, but he could have gone well below that if he wanted to, and he ended up sentencing me to 42 months. So in a situation like that, it's very unlikely to see probation, even though we have had some recent clients that have gone above and beyond expectations, great character references, great personal narratives. They built a strong community presence. They did their coaching sessions. Their PSR interview went really, really well. They were very prepared. They had tons of community service hours that were documented to show growth, to show they're practicing humility, and most of all, to express how they've taken accountability. So we have seen people that are in Zone C and Zone D receive probation. It is possible. You just have to work for it. But if you are a Zone A or Zone B, Category 1, there will be a possibility of a recommendation of probation, which will go a long way for a lot of you. What's going on, Mike? Mike Winters? Who did I miss? Does it say that was Derek? So yeah, so that's to give you a little bit of information on there, because the client we had today, they were, after all of their departures, they were a offense level 29, which still carried, I think it was 29, carried 87 to 180 months. They were only sentenced They were sentenced, I believe it was 41 or 42 months, which is a downward departure from the sentencing guidelines. But she was under the impression that she may qualify for this amendment that's made to the sentencing guideline, thinking that she could qualify for alternative measurements to not have to spend her time in prison. And unfortunately, she's already in prison, so this isn't going to undo that. And it's always hard to give somebody that news, because in prison, you grasp at every little possibility. You hear somebody talking about something, and they sound educated when they're saying it, because they're reading it from an email that they received, but they're probably not interpreting it properly, or they only received a part of it. Like in this situation, the only thing she knew was there's an amendment to nonviolent first-time offenders saying there's alternative actions to going to prison, but it didn't give her the specifications regarding you have to be a Zone A or Zone B in order to qualify for that. So after doing a little bit of homework, it was quickly discovered that this is the catch, Zone A or Zone B, which would have been low guidelines to begin with. Was it a plea deal? Was what a plea deal, Gus? If you can let me know what you're referring to. Probably was a plea deal. Most federal cases end in plea deals. Mine was a plea deal, if that's what you're referring to. So how's everybody else doing this weekend? We had a pretty big weekend. I moved, finally moved out of the apartment. We've been in that apartment ever since I was, released from prison. While I was in the halfway house, that was the apartment we had. And, we finally moved to a house. And I will be sharing some documentary style stories of the move with you guys over the next couple of weeks. But I'm very excited. I've got a nice backyard finally for the dogs and the cats. And, we got a nice patio to go sit on now. So it's been such a journey going from federal prison to the halfway house, through probation, just constantly under the microscope, to this ultimate freedom now that we all crave. And I know so many of you right now, you're in the early stages of what you're going through, whether indictment, pre-indictment, just under investigation. Something's coming, you're a target. And I know how frustrating and how anxiety-ridden that can be, but I'm telling you guys, there is light at the end of the tunnel. You just have to put in the work, the effort, and try to position yourself for the best possible outcome. And the only way you're going to do that is realizing that you cannot do it on your own. The program that we have to guide you through these steps, everything is a stepping stone to position you for that outcome. You just have to be willing to pick up the ball and run with it.
Got a question?
Question.
What zone is aggravated identity theft? It's coming from Derek Emanuel.
It's not a zone. That would be your charge. The aggravated identity theft, for an example, here, let me go back to the guidelines, guys. So you could be, if you look right here, let's say you were Zone C. Base offense level of 13, 12 to 18 months. But let's say your crime was aggravated identity theft. The crime of aggravated identity theft carries a minimum mandatory, which has nothing to do with the offense level itself. So the offense level would be kind of a moot point in that position, because your guideline range would be 12 to 18 months, but the minimum mandatory would force the judge to sentence you to a minimum of 24 months, even though that's above your guideline. That's why there's all of this talk about prison reform and getting rid of or reducing minimum mandatories to just violent crimes or nonviolent crimes. It should be up to the judge. Your guidelines should be your guidelines. If the judge wants to sentence you to probation, the judge should have the ability to do that. Minimum mandatories have created a lot of grief for a lot of people because they're getting stuck with these minimum mandatories that don't necessarily match the crime. And you're seeing people with 60 months, you're seeing people with 10 years. And then, aggravated identity theft is something that can be a slippery slope in a situation. And your guideline range may only be 12 months, but that is going to give you a minimum of 24 months. So it really depends. What else we got in here?
Junior just showed up.
What's going on, Junior? Someone is making money, Gus. Not really, Gus. It's just, it's moving yourself into a house in a lot of ways can be cheaper than renting. You just have to kind of make proper decisions and pay attention to what's going on in front of you. And if you work hard enough and long enough for something, I don't really care what your income is, as long as you're progressing in whatever industry you're in. I believe a home is in anybody's grasp if they're willing to put in the work and effort.
I told him it was a rental anyways.
Would it mandatory clause guideline? What? Say that again, Mike. What was he asking?
I couldn't make it out either.
He'll ask again.
I'm watching.
Checking in from Oakland, Spokane. I was born in Coeur d'Alene. All right, Mike. Mike was born in Coeur d'Alene. What's going on, Michael Sean Riley? How are you doing? I have sentencing October 5th. How do we know if you get to self-surrender? Junior's got sentencing on October 5th. He wants to know, how do you know if you get to self-surrender? Well, if you've been out on pretrial this long and you've been doing things that you're supposed to do, there's a good possibility that you're going to be able to self-surrender unless the prosecutor has a good reason for not wanting you to self-surrender or arguing that you should not self-surrender. But ultimately, it's up to the judge. You should be able to ask your attorney if they have any prior dealings with this judge. Does the judge that is sentencing you, does this judge typically allow people to self-surrender? Almost everybody that's out on supervised release while they're on pretrial, as long as they've stayed out of trouble, they do what they're supposed to do, most of the time we see people self-surrender. There are, of course, times where, there's nothing you can do and the judge remands you at sentencing, and then you wait in a county type of a arrangement until you're designated, because you don't get designated at sentencing. You just get sentenced. Then it takes a few weeks for designation once they calculate everything, your points, your age, your crime, your safety factors, all of that goes into consideration. And then you're designated, and then you're transferred to the prison. That's why self-surrendering is such a huge benefit, because you don't go through any of that transit. You just go back home, you wait to find out where you're going, you're given a surrender date, and you show up to prison on that date. You also get a 3-point reduction on your custody level when you self-surrender, which can, in some cases, be the make or break, whether you go to a camp or a low to a medium. So self-surrendering has its benefits as well.
And Mike wonders, would it be minimum mandatory plus guidelines? That's what he was trying to say.
Oh, no, not necessarily, Mike. If your guidelines are, let's say your guidelines are 24 to 36 months and you've got aggravated identity theft, which is a minimum of 24 months, it would likely just be the 24 months. But if you have a guideline range of 12 to 18 months and a minimum mandatory of 24 months, you're just going to be sentenced to the 24 months. It's not going to be 24 months plus your guidelines, which would give you 3.5, 4 years. So no. Hey, Kevin, how are you doing? Glad you could join us. But that's really all we had for today's video, guys. Is there anything we missed?
Any last questions?
Do you guys have any last questions about that? I really wanted just to do a quick video on this because it seems to be, you hear about all of these rumors and all of these laws that are changing and all these bills that are going into effect. So I wanted to give you guys some insight. Make sure you click on the link in the video because it has a direct link to the addendum in there. What's the question we got?
With the 2-year mandatory minimum, does the entire sentence have to be served at prison? Looks like I'll be going to Pensacola.
No. So if you have let's say you're sentenced to 24 months, your minimum mandatory, 24 months. That's just the sentence imposed by the courts. Now, if you're going to get good time off of that, so you're going to do your 24 months times 0.85, you're going to minus your good time. If you qualify for RDAP and you get into RDAP, you also get the 6 months removed for RDAP. And then with your good time, you're going to serve about, with your 4 months of halfway house they have to give you for completing RDAP, you would serve 10, 11 months, under a year on a 24-month sentence, even though it's a minimum mandatory. Now, keep in mind, though, that was Derek, right? Derek, keep in mind, a 24-month sentence, if you plan on taking RDAP, you need to enter into RDAP almost immediately when you arrive to the prison. So if you get to the prison and the next RDAP class doesn't start for, let's say, 2 months, 3 months, you won't have enough time remaining on your sentence to take RDAP. RDAP requires a minimum of 24 months minus your good time when you enter into the program to qualify for any time off. So if you get to the prison and the RDAP class doesn't start for 2 months, you're not going to get any time off for RDAP. You'll still get the additional 4 months of halfway house, or the guaranteed 4 months halfway house, but you will not get the 6 months off. If you're concerned about that and you know that you do qualify for RDAP based on what's on your PSR, or you think you qualify for RDAP, we can assist you to make sure that when you arrive at prison, that you're arriving there within 2 to 3 weeks of the next RDAP class starting, to give you the amount of time to get into the program to qualify for the time off. So I would recommend giving us a call, which my number is right here on the screen, 509-434-4695, or shoot me an email, rdapdan@gmail.com, or visit us on the internet, on my website, rdapdan.com, and of course all of our social media links. Was there another question from Mike? I've turned myself in twice. California parole was okay. He was just giving us. Yeah, Mike, that sounds rough, man, for sure. I think that's all we got. Any other questions? Did that answer your question, Derek? And Derek, if it didn't answer your question, I would definitely recommend. A lot of people think, well, I'm already past pre-sentence. I've already done my narratives and my character reference. I'm already past my PSR. What else is there that RDAP Dan and team might be able to do? We don't just help people get into RDAP. There's a Second Chance Act to help you qualify for up to a year federal halfway house. There's early termination off of supervised release, off of probation. Once you're finished with your BOP sentence, now you're on probation or supervised release. We can also help you with early termination of that after you've served 1 year. That's a new service that we've started offering over the last few months. I did it for myself, worked beautifully. I had 36 months of supervised release after I finished my prison sentence, and I served just under a year and a half of my 36 months, and I was terminated from my supervised release, which made me free and clear, which is an amazing feeling, not going to lie. So if that's all the questions you guys got, I'm going to get rolling. I've got to go feed my dogs, Oliver and Einstein, which you guys haven't seen in a while. But as always, guys, I'm RDAP Dan, Federal Prison Time Consulting. One day at a time, people helping people, community as method. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Thumbs up. I want to see all the thumbs up on this video. Appreciate it, guys. Have a great night. Peace, everybody.